Hey there couch detectives, it's Caroline Mitchell here. I'm an ex-police detective and crime thriller author, and today I'm bringing you the chilling case of William Liske and a crime so horrific that the victim's son thought it was a Halloween prank. I'm bringing you to Sandusky in North Ohio, which has been described as a small town with a big city feel. Housing is affordable and the people are said to be nice. There's a waterfront district with bars, restaurants and shops, and the family in question lived in a rural part of Sandusky and the land surrounding their home was plentiful. Devin Griffin, aged 16, lived with his 46-year-old mother Sue Liske, his 53-year-old stepfather William Liske, also known as Bill, and his 23-year-old brother Derek. It was Halloween and houses were decked out for the spooky holiday, but for Devin it was the same as any other Sunday. He'd just spent the previous night with his dad and he followed his usual routine of going home to his mum's the next morning to get changed for church. His 24-year-old stepbrother William, nicknamed BJ, was there, and he was unusually cheerful and chatty, asking Devin how he was, how long he'd be gone for, and normally BJ didn't get on with his stepbrothers, so it seemed odd to Devin at the time. But Devin took it in his stride, going to church as usual, and when he returned his mum's car was still on the drive. The house was quiet, but it was early and he figured they were still in bed, so he did what most 16-year-olds do and he went to his room to play video games. At 1:30 in the afternoon, Devin came out of his room, probably in search of food. At this point, he thought it was strange that no one was about, so he went to his mum and stepdad's bedroom where he saw their outline under the maroon bed cover, which was pulled up over their heads. He asked his mum if she was awake. No answer. Then he walked to the side of the bed and saw her foot sticking out beneath the covers, but there was no movement when he touched her. He kept talking as he pulled down the covers, then froze when he saw that her pillow was soaked in blood. I can't begin to imagine how he must have felt. I mean, Devin initially thought it was a Halloween prank as he tried to comprehend what was before him. The community was in shock, and neighbours described Bill as a loving father. He was an ex-Air Force veteran who enjoyed hunting, fishing and spending time on the 100-acre land surrounding his home. He called it his own personal heaven. Devin's mum, Sue, was an office manager. She liked hunting too, camping and gardening, and was described as someone with a big heart. Devin's brother, Griffin, was a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, who actually represented his country in Paris. And he loved spending time in his sailboat on Lake Erie. So who murdered the Liske family and why? Well, Devin told the police that the last time he saw his parents, they were with his stepbrother, BJ, who had since disappeared. BJ was known to police. Devin's mum and stepfather were law-abiding citizens, but domestic incidents had been reported from the address. Domestic abuse incidents between parents and their children can go horribly wrong, and in my experience in the police, they usually go only one way in terms of level of risk, and that's up. It's difficult as most parents don't want their child to have a criminal record, so by the time they eventually call for help, there have been many unreported cases in the run-up to it. As for BJ, the police had records of an incident in 2002 when his father Bill called the police because his son threatened to harm himself. In fact, BJ had been suicidal for some time. Now, Bill was a man who cared deeply for his son, but as BJ's mental health problems grew, Bill soon became out of his depth, so he called law enforcement for help. But when police arrived, BJ flew off the handle and attacked them. He was arrested for assault and faced charges in juvenile court. In October 2004, the police were called again when BJ got into a row with his stepmom Susan. Apparently he flew into a rage, pushing her hard on the chest. He was allegedly charged with assault and robbery for hitting her with a coffee cup and taking her car keys, but he was found incompetent to stand a trial due to his mental health issues, and the charges were later dropped. I really don't blame his parents for his declining health. I've come across families at their wits' ends when I was in the police, and it's so hard to provide sufficient health care for so many reasons, and often the person they're trying to help just won't accept it. BJ had at least 3 more run-ins with the police before he finally moved into a group home in Sandusky, which provided care for mental health patients. But the disputes didn't end there, as BJ fought with his father one more time when he came to pick him up. And there were other incidents which didn't come to light until after the murders, and BJ was said to have had hit his dad at least twice. You see, BJ took his parents' divorce badly, and that's when he started getting into trouble at school. His father remarried Susan in 2001, and BJ resented her to the point of being violent. When he was 18, BJ's father kicked him out of the house after he tried to attack Susan in the shower. Bill tried to control his son by making house rules, but BJ rebelled against them and things got worse. But Bill wouldn't give up on his son. In February 2006, he filed for guardianship after BJ was hospitalised for schizoaffective disorder, which is a type of bipolar disease. On the application, it said that Bill wanted to protect his son by placing him in a halfway house or a group home. It also said that when BJ was taking his medication, he did really well, but it's a common theme for people to take their medication, they feel well, then they stop taking the drugs because they don't like the side effects and they think they're okay. But when they stop, they then fall into a decline, and this is what happened to BJ. The paperwork stated that BJ would start drinking and smoking cannabis, and that's when things got really bad. Bill visited his son regularly, taking him on holiday and bringing him deer hunting to the family's cabin in Carroll County. They both came home just 24 hours before the murders. Bill's friend and neighbour, Mark Radell, tried to raise concerns, taking Bill aside and telling him that all the neighbours suspected BJ of torturing and killing their pets, and a dog had even been shot. He told him to take care with BJ. Bill dismissed his concerns for his family, saying that his son wouldn't hurt them. Mark later told police investigators that Bill would never see the bad in his son, even though he had physical injuries from their fights. So after Bill and BJ returned home from hunting on the Saturday before Halloween, they met some friends for beers and they had a nice evening. Mark later told police that everyone had a good time. He didn't see Derek, Susan's 23-year-old son, but that wasn't unusual because he and BJ kept out of each other's way. BJ was meant to go back to his halfway house that night, the night before the murders. But Bill had had a few beers and he set up a bed for him on the sofa and told him he'd bring him back the next day. And this is the decision that could have cost him his life. At about midnight, the family went to bed. Mark's wife Michelle told officers that she heard what sounded like gunshots at about 6:30 on Halloween morning. And Devon came home at about 9:30 in the morning to change his shirt for church. After Devon went to church, BJ took the family car and went to the hunting cabin in Carroll County. And he was there less than an hour when the Carroll County Sheriff's deputies found him and took him into custody. He didn't put up any fight and he went willingly. According to coroner records, Bill was shot 5 times in the head and face at a range of about 1 or 2 feet. He was lying in a natural sleeping position and had the covers pulled up over him. Susan was lying differently though. Her limbs were sprawled as if she had turned around. She was shot 3 times at close range, according to police. A later news report said that Susan had been sexually assaulted by BJ on the day of the murders, but this isn't 100% fact. Police had to force their way into Derek's room upstairs and they found him curled up in bed facing the wall. According to the coroner, Derek suffered blunt force trauma to the head and probably died within a few minutes of the first blow. A bloody claw hammer was found in his room and it was determined that he was murdered first. And he was a black belt in karate, so it seems obvious that he would have been killed first. So BJ was charged with the family, reported that he wrote a letter to a family member apologising for the killings. During the trial, he spoke emotionless. "I loved my dad very much," he said, "and it makes me sick every time I think about what I did. I can't really explain why all of this had to happen, but I think most of all it had to do with my mental illness." He apologised for killing his father, stepmother and stepbrother, blaming mental illness and Satan for his actions. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, and he was later found dead in his cell, having committed suicide at the age of 29 from self-inflicted wounds. We may never know why BJ chose to kill his family members on that day. Did Halloween have significance? Had the attacks been planned? I guess we'll never know. The whole thing seems like a tragic waste of life. I mean, have you heard of William B.J. Liske? I was surprised there wasn't more coverage on YouTube with this case. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it though, and if there's any cases you'd like to see featured, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'd hugely appreciate a like, and if you'd like to see more, then do subscribe. Also remember that crimes like these are extremely rare, so sleep soundly in your bed tonight. Until next time, bye bye.